This episode is sponsored by Property Filter. Find great deals faster.
Hello and welcome to the Financial Freedom Podcast, sponsored by us at Property Portfolio Building. This podcast is designed by real people on their journey to achieving financial freedom, and we'll focus on people who've either already attained it, who are joining us on that journey, or maybe a specialist topic that can help you build your technical knowledge to achieving and maintaining that financial freedom. We hope you enjoy it.
Welcome back to the Financial Freedom Podcast. Today is one of our 6 rounds with episodes where we interview somebody who is either on the journey to or has already achieved their financial freedom goals. Now, this person I've known for a number of years. We started probably around the same time in terms of like really taking property seriously. He's built to date a £4 million property portfolio. He did most of that actual owned assets within 1 year, but very interestingly, he started his first deal on a rent-to-rent type program, which a lot of listeners are really interested in, which was actually in the glamping sector. From that deal, he managed to build his credibility, and we sit here today talking to him about his now 4 million expanding portfolio and empire. And I'd like to just welcome to the show Phil Saunders.
Thanks, Phil. Great to be here.
Yeah.
Welcome.
So Phil and Phil. So you can be Phil number 1 for the day. I'll be Phil number 2 for the day. Okay, lovely. So Phil, we always start with a little bit of an icebreaker.
Okay.
And we try and find an interesting fact about the guest. And the interesting fact about you is also, I sometimes think to be an entrepreneur, you have to be a madman. But you ran 100 miles in a day.
Yes.
Which is, in my mind, as a 17.5 stone former rugby player, is the definition of a madman. So what possessed you to do that?
Yeah, thank you very much. 100 miles in a day. I've always been a fan of running. Throughout my property career and throughout my past career, I found running to be quite a meditative place that I can go to give me lots of freedom and escape. And it also calms me down and relaxes me. So running through me was a really good way to de-stress. And when I got more into building my property business and creating more time freedom, I just expanded what I could do in that running space. And with the extra time that I'd created, I really wanted to challenge myself and push myself further. So I started running ultramarathons 3 years ago during lockdown, again, utilizing the time I had there. And slowly built up my experience.
So did you do like a half marathon or a standard marathon first, or you just went straight for the ultra?
Yeah, so I did. My first ultra was 50 miles.
Right. So well over and above you.
Well over above the marathon. Previous to that, I'd done a marathon.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
One marathon that I trained for. I did it in 4 hours, so it was a reasonable time. But I've done quite a lot of normal fell running in the hills. I live in the countryside, beautiful part of the Peak District. So I love mountains and hills and just running just for pure pleasure rather than events. Yeah. But then moving forwards, I really wanted to challenge what I could achieve. And it's the same attitude I've got in business as I have in my personal life. So for me, pushing myself to a target that I didn't think was achievable or really stretching my comfort zone was really important to me. And I get a lot of growth from that. Yeah. So 50 miles was great, really good. But on that event, really, really good, funny little story. There's another event that sets off the day before. That's the 100-mile race. Yeah. And it's that the people running the 100-mile race left at 6 o'clock in the evening, ran through the night without sleep. And then they did this 50-mile course that I was on.
Right.
So I was running along, having done.
So they're arriving. When you're setting off.
When we're setting off, that's the general idea. Yeah, that's the general idea. And I was setting off and catching up with some of these runners, and in some cases, some of these 100-milers were catching up with me. I've done 30 miles, thinking, God, this is hard work. I've still got 20 miles to go, but I'll make it. I'll do well. And this guy would overtake me that had done 80 miles. I'd run through the night.
It is. I can't get my head around that one. Sorry.
It was amazing. Yeah, it was amazing. But what an incredible experience to be a part of and to see and witness, what the human body is capable of. Yeah. And I found that incredibly inspiring. And that left me thinking, by the end of that race, it was really hard. I finished the first 50 miles in 12 hours. I was knackered. I said to my wife, I'm never doing this ever again. But in the back of my mind, I was like, how did those guys run 100 miles through the night, double my distance and still complete the course? And that's the question that I needed to answer. And it's the same question when people are listening to this sort of podcast and wanting to get into property. How do you build a multi-million-pound portfolio from scratch? And it's the same question. And it's the same mental attitude that you need to have. It's about
Yeah,
having a goal. It's about taking forward steps.
Yeah, getting a plan in place and then executing at the end of the day, isn't it?
Getting a plan in place. Yeah. And in many cases, getting support and help.
Yes, absolutely.
That's what I did for my 100-mile event. I had a trainer, a coach. He taught me, exactly what.
And roughly how long did you train leading up to the 100 mile to?
6 months.
6 months.
Yeah, it was a 6-month training. Yeah.
And what timeline is 100 miles? What does that look like in terms of running it?
And how long it
Yeah,
should
how
take?
long did it take you?
It took me 31 hours.
Oh,
so
goodness me.
my goal was to do it within 24,
Right.
which was a big stretch. There's a handful of people that have done that course in under 24 hours.
Yeah.
So 31 hours I was happy with. I was just happy to finish.
Was it a race?
It was a race. Yeah, it was a timed event.
Right.
I came 15th out of about 40 people.
Yeah, no, you didn't. You came 15th out of 66 million people in the UK, mate. So,
Or if you include the world.
yeah. Or 15th out of 8 billion people if you include the rest of the world. I can tell you that for free. You can beat me anytime on a 100-mile distance.
Very, very small percentage.
My philosophy on
down
running.
100-mile ultra marathon, isn't it?
My philosophy these days on running is if I'm not being chased and I'm not chasing a ball, I'm not running. I did one 10K once, and it was the Manchester 10K. And I lied on my application because I thought I'm going to try and get as far to the front as possible. And so I was like 15 rows back. So we're talking the era of a guy called Gabriel Haile Selassie.
Yes.
Do you remember him?
Yeah, of course.
Phenomenal, right?
Yeah.
So not the political leader.
No.
He's a very different person.
No.
But the runner, he was amazing, right? So, and I could see him. He was 15 rows back. Because I was only 15 rows back, but I could see him just about because he's only a small dude. And I'm there, 17 stone rugby player, and there's all runners around me looking at me going, this guy's lied. He's not. I just thought I'm going to sprint off at the start. I'm going to try and catch him. Like that. I got nowhere near him because his jogging is like my sprinting, right? So I got absolutely nowhere near him, and I was goosed for the rest because I'd sprinted at the start. And then I think the way that it runs from Deansgate or somewhere like that in Manchester to Old Trafford and back. Basically, that's how it runs. Yeah. And I was halfway to Old Trafford, and he was passing me on the way back. So, but when you see somebody who's at that level, though, it's in a different level, isn't it? Lovely. All right then. So we'll move on to question 1.
Okay.
And it's very simple. Tell me your story.
Yeah, a little bit about myself. I've always been into the outdoors, loved rock climbing, running, as we've already spoken about. So when I was looking at what I was going to do for a career, being sort of an outward bound instructor was something that was quite prominent. How can I make money doing my passion, which is something I'm still working on to this day. So I went to Ambleside College in the Lake District to study outdoor studies, to be an outdoor ed instructor. Went there for 3 years, met my lovely wife there. However, what I realized when I was there, it's very much a lifestyle choice. Doing that sort of role, as rewarding as it is, you get to live in great, beautiful places around the world. It's very poorly paid. And a lot of the guys that finished that degree educated people, were going and working for basically nothing for several years to build up their knowledge, their experience, and then they could start charging for their services. And that was just something I wasn't really willing to do. So at the time, I discovered a different way of making money that was similar to my passion of rock climbing, which was rope access, basically getting paid to abseil off stuff. So I was working in central London, working in high-rise buildings in Manchester and Liverpool, just abseiling off stuff, fixing things and getting paid for it. It was a pretty cool job, It was really interesting, and you needed a good head for heights. And over the years, that progressed into wind turbines. Many years ago, the golden ticket for rope access guys was offshore oil and gas. Some guys are still getting good money doing that today, but by the time I built up my knowledge and my experience, offshore wind became really prominent, and that really met my needs perfectly. So I spent years traveling around the world, having a great adventure, going and abseiling off wind turbines and fixing them. Wind turbines are great to work with because they're always in remote locations. They're always often in national parks, on top of mountains. Top of mountains are great places for wind. Offshore in the North Sea, various seas throughout the world. Beautiful, great places to go and spend your time. So really adventurous, and I just enjoyed that immensely up until the point I had children. And that's what really changed for me. When my twin girls, Maya and Isla, were born, it was great to go away for a few years because I could escape and be like, yes, okay, I'm off to work, sorry. And my poor wife, bless her, was stuck with these twins for weeks whilst I was away earning money for the family. But then when they got a little bit older, they really started to miss me, and it really started to hurt, particularly during COVID. I'd be going away for 5-6 weeks at a time, working in Norway. And as I would leave the house, on the evening before my flight, there'd be tears flooding down their face. Why are you going away, Dad?
Yeah.
Where are you going? I said, oh, Daddy needs money. We need money. Oh, you don't need money. Why don't you just stay here? Oh, I need to pay for the mortgage. You don't need a mortgage. Kids don't understand. So it was really hard. And that was the last trip I did. I came back and I said, that's it. I'm done. And I used lockdown as my catapult into property. And that's where I started beginning to change my life. And
interesting. We have some very similar stories in a way, because Phil was working away a lot with your corporate job.
Well, we have a connection. So my companies worked with the wind companies to, we were the staffing agencies that provided the wind people. So we were traveling around with Siemens Gamesa and GE and those types of companies to other wind turbine product manufacturers are available, of course. But to provide them with staffing people. So I was off to like the same location, just not going offshore. Really.
Traveling around the country for development projects and playing every young family, similar timings that you were saying. So I think the key thing is very similar to. It's almost like to get the flexibility to suit the lifestyle more, isn't it?
Exactly right. That was my key goal, was A, time to spend with my kids and my family, and B, there as they grew up. Because I think they were 2.5 at this time. From 2 to 7, which they are now, is really crucial development age for young kids.
Absolutely,
and to not have a dad around for a lot of that time, because I was working, just seemed to be too big a sacrifice. So for me, it was spending time with them, and then also to create more free time for my hobbies.
And your girls are twins?
Twins, identical, completely identical. Yeah.
Did you show me a photo and you didn't know?
Yes, I know.
You genuinely don't know which one's which.
I do now, but when they were younger, even now.
Have you swapped them?
No, I know. We've always worried about that. We've always worried
There's got to be a wonder, hasn't there?
Yeah, luckily one of them is ever so slightly heavier than the other one. And always has been ever since they were born. So that's the only real way that I've tracked them through the years.
So was that in your morning routine? Get up, brush your teeth,
weigh the children.
And the other similarity, we both have an Isla, don't we? So great name for a daughter.
Yeah. One of my daughters called Isla, and so is yours, Tim.
Yeah.
How old are they now?
7. Yeah, 7, and I could tell them apart at last.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Well, they start to.
They start to look more and more different, and they've got very different personalities. Very interesting, that process. So to start with, absolutely identical, couldn't tell them apart at all. But then as they've aged, there's no defining features on them. There's no birthmarks or anything, but they're just slight differences that you start to see.
Yeah, good stuff. Lovely. So we're going to move on to question 2. Which is to do with the topic of the show, which is financial freedom itself. So, and the reason we ask this is because we believe this actual phrase is widely used but not necessarily defined. So my question is, what is financial freedom to you personally, and where are you on your journey?
Oh, great question. Financial freedom for me is being able to wake up every day and choose what I do with that day. So it's all, for me, mostly around time freedom. But obviously you need to create some sort of financial income to generate that time freedom. So for me, it's having enough cash flow to pay my bills from the properties that I own, to cover everything, that I don't need to go on a wind turbine, that I don't need to go and do extra work to pay for my lifestyle. And I've achieved that. Mostly within the year 2022 to 2023, where we bought this large portfolio of properties that will go into the strategy of exactly how I did that. So I'm there. I've got there, and I'm pretty happy. And I'm still going to continue to invest and buy and build better and bigger things, but I'm not in a great rush to do that.
So my question is, why do you want to build better, bigger, and all that kind of stuff? If you say you've achieved it, why are you still building?
I do speak about that. I think it's important to acknowledge when you've achieved your goal. Going back to the 100-mile race, when you finish that finish line, you get to that end point, it's clearly defined, you've done it, you've finished it. A lot of people, when they begin this financial freedom journey, they don't create a clear set of goals. They don't have a clear number. You should always put a number to it. I need to make X amount of money per month from my properties by this time.
Because you raised a very good point, actually, a minute ago, which was you haven't mentioned replace salary, you've mentioned pay your bills.
Yeah.
Which I think is sometimes the
misconception. People a lot of the time want to cover their salary. Yeah. Whereas you just need to be able to live, like you said, without having to work away.
Exactly.
The other key thing you say there as well, and I really believe it as well, is have that time frame for it. Because everyone goes, "Oh, I want to get to 10 grand," and it's like, okay, when?
Yeah.
When?
Because we always talk about property strategies. It's like depending on when you want to achieve it, as to what funding mechanism and what strategy you should go after, and things like that. It is really, really important, I believe.
Exactly. And some strategies will get you there quicker than others.
Yeah.
You know, if you're going to do a standard sort of buy-to-let strategy, a buy-to-let will make you a few £100s a month if you're lucky. So how many of them will you need to get to £10,000? It's going to be a lot.
And that is the mistake I made. I started doing buy, refurbish, refinance, buy-to-lets. But I'm like, I really want to cover my salary, which I probably should have done living expenses to start with. And then I learned that there's more higher cash flowing strategies I can do that will get me there quicker. And then my learning was I did too many at once and I leveraged too much at one time. But anyway, it got me to a goal at a certain time that I wanted to leave a job.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with the buy-to-let strategy, but you have to accept that it's going to take time to get there, especially if you're using your own funds. You're doing 1 or 2 properties at a time. It's going to take you years, whereas some of the higher cash flowing strategies that we'll come on to, you could do it in one deal. Genuinely, one deal can change your life.
Yeah, 100%. But yeah, the buy-to-lets, sometimes they're great, really long-term assets. We talk about them as sort of pension fund type assets that you can keep in forever. But yeah, like you said, it may not give the higher returns and the higher cash flow. So yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
So you've achieved. So you said you've achieved it.
Yes.
So
yes.
So what does that look like then? What's the difference what difference has it made to you day to day?
Oh, day to day is an incredible difference. You know, I pick up my kids from school every day, drop them off every day, and then between those hours of 9 and 3. I work on my business, I spend time going running, paragliding, all these other things that I like to do, but it's transformed my life. But that was a lot of work to get there. And that's not that it's not an overnight success. There's no such thing as an overnight success. There's pain, there's heartache, there's a lot of graft that went into those key years. And I missed a lot of my kids growing up whilst I was doing that. So even though the ultimate aim was to get to where I am now, the delayed gratification was, okay, I'm going to work hard and put all my eggs into this, all my energy into this for just 2 or 3 years so I can get to where I am now. And I think that's the level of commitment you need. I think you really do have to put a lot of time and energy into these things and be prepared to work for it. Nothing's easy.
So do you think it's a little bit of the snowball type effect as well? If you put that energy up front and then it sort of compounds over time. Have you found that the last couple of years because of all that work you put in?
Yeah. And it gets easier. It gets easier because if you're doing the same strategy repeatedly, some of the problems that you face in the first 1 or 2 deals, you already know the answers to.
Yeah.
You already know that there's going to be a problem that's going to come up. You've identified it, you found the solution, and you don't hit that problem again.
Sometimes there's a system that you put in place.
Yes.
Once you put that in place, that works for the next 5, 10, 15 years or whatever.
Yeah, it really does. Yeah, it really does.
Lovely. So I think that's a good bridge then into the actual strategies, because this is really key for people, because yours is different certainly to ours. You know, you've gone down a different route. So talk to us about what strategies you were using, and how that's developed into what you're doing now.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll go right back to 2019 when I first got started in property. I had no money. You know, I think this is a common misconception again, that people need a huge bank balance to get started. I've never had any money. All my investments have been paid for with private funding. But to get started, my first little mini business in property was with a glamping site. I was really trying to find a way to get started with low funds, and rent to rent is one of the most popular ways that people do that. Lots of people doing it. But I was really struggling, like many people will that'll be listening to the podcast that might be doing rent to SA or rent to rent in some form. It's hard work to get that first deal over the line. It can be really, really difficult. And I had the same problem. I was really struggling to find someone to give me my first opportunity. I knew that I'd make the most of whatever opportunity I was given, but that very first one was a real battle to find. And in the end, I ended up doing something slightly different, a bit more creative, in order to try and force an opportunity. Because I live in the Peak District, it's a beautiful place to live. There's lots of different opportunities that present themselves in a rural location than in a city. And I love being in the countryside. So I thought, I've got to try and make the most of that location. And driving around trying to find rent to SA deals, I just noticed that there was a real lack of glamping sites in the Peak District where I was. And I thought, there's got to be a way I can create some sort of glamping business here, but without having to go buy land. And the key different little strategy I came up with was just contacting other people that had land, mainly campsite owners, and saying, hey, look, could I rent a small piece of your campsite? and put a yurt on there and do a glamping business. And it sounds like a crazy idea, but it worked. I spoke to all the local campsites, just put myself out there, spoke to them directly on the phone. And a few people said, yeah, this is a great idea. Come on, do it on my glamping site. And I set up.
Was the other benefit of that it had the sort of use class from a planning perspective for a yurt?
Yes. Yeah. Well, you should have planning when you do this on an empty piece of land.
Yeah.
But the campsite I did the deal with, my first one, had just got planning permission for glamping.
Right. Excellent.
But glamping is different to camping.
Glamping is different to camping.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
That's good to know. That was what I was trying to.
Oh, right. Yes. Yeah. You'll need planning for both.
Yeah.
You'll need planning for both. But working with existing camping sites is a real easy step.
So is caravans different again?
I wouldn't know, actually. Not something I got into. I think you probably would have to get, you definitely need planning for all of these, but whether you'd be able to get one planning permission.
So the key is checking with the planning consultant.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. If you're looking at doing glamping on a bit of land you might own, then consult a planning consultant.
And is there a glamping planning class, or is it sui generis?
No, it seems to be specific to glamping.
Right. All right. Okay.
Yeah. Specific, because the guy that I did the first deal with, Coombs Valley Campsite in the Peak District, great place if you want to go. He had planning permission for camping, had a long, well-established camping site, and he just got planning permission for glamping.
Right. So from a timing perspective,
perfect.
Excellent.
He's just done something which he thinks, I would be good for my land.
Yeah.
You've rung him and gone,
can I try this out? Yeah. And it was absolutely ideal.
Now was that just luck, or did you see on like the planning board that had happened?
No, I disagree. I disagree because luck is subjective, right? So you said something which was, give me just to define the luck then. How long did it take you to do that, your first deal from deciding to do property? How long was it to get to that position?
How long it took me was probably about a year.
It took you 12 months. Yeah. And how many campsites did you contact?
Well, that process from deciding to go to a glamping business to getting my first deal took about a week.
It only took a week?
Took a week.
But how many did you contact?
34 in total.
So you took a year.
Yeah.
And then to decide on your strategy, which I think is a really important point to raise because people take that time.
Yeah.
People do like the year course that we do, and by the end of the year course, don't know what their strategy is going to be because they're confused with all the various
strategies.
So many different options.
It's analysis paralysis just on strategy, never mind numbers.
Definitely.
And then you've then got on the phone.
Got on the phone, picked up the phone. 34
contacts later, you found how many? You said maybe.
So it took me 2 hours to call these people. I just did it in one go.
Right.
Got a coffee, called, went from the top of the list to the bottom very systematically, and I said, I'm just going to do the whole list.
Right.
And I think the first 4 people said no, the 5th person said yes, and then I got 3 or 4 other people that said yes by the time I got to the bottom of the list.
So out of 34,
your
hit rate was about 4 or 5?
Yeah.
That said yes. So 1 in 6.
I got 4 definite yeses and I got 4 more maybes.
So about 18% success rate.
Yeah, it's good.
So you've got to be like you spent a year.
Yeah.
You've been rejected. 82% of the time.
Yeah.
Roughly.
100% of the time. For a year, 100% of the time.
Yeah, 100% on other strategies.
Yeah.
And then 82% on this, and then you got a yes.
Yeah, I got a yes.
So you tell me why that's lucky.
Yeah, true. It's persistence, isn't it?
So
it's persistence.
By taking action, doing the work and persisting, you made your own luck. That's
well, it's 1 in 34.
Yeah.
So these contacted 34 campsites, and 1 of them had just got planning.
But my point is there's a chance that none of them could have come off. But
true,
because you did the work, you took action and you persisted, that small bit of luck came to you.
Yeah.
So you've made your own luck is sort of what I was doing, not just like it's just come.
Yeah. So,
but I do honestly think that was a lot of work.
But if you're listening to this now and you're wanting to get going and you live in a more rural area, or you know rural areas, or you're an outdoory kind of person,
it's a great strategy.
34 calls you've got to make.
It's pretty, it didn't take that long to do. And it's a unique strategy. I've spoken at many property events and told people this and said, this is what I did, put it out there. I don't know anyone that's done it since. But, you can still go do it.
That's why it's great to have you because, we haven't had a guest that.
So talk to me. The
So
strategy then. Somebody said yes.
Yes.
What happened then?
Okay, so I went to meet the guy, went to the land, beautiful campsite. We spoke about the timing being perfect because the guy just got the planning permission and he used me as a test because he was like, well, I want to see if this works. He didn't think it would work.
Yeah.
Even though he got planning for it, he was like, well, this guy's going to do it all for me and I'm just going to see how busy this guy is.
Yeah.
And he just owned the land.
He owned the land. He ran the campsite and he
Right.
owned the land and he had the planning permission.
Right.
Perfect. So it was like a match made in heaven.
So his main income streams from campsite.
From the campsite, yeah. But he was looking to expand and diversify, like a lot of farmers and campsite.
Oh, is he a farmer?
He's a farmer, he's got a stables, and he has the campsite.
Right, okay. So he's got a number of income streams.
But he was putting more energy and time into the camping because it was a lovely site and he had a lot of regular customers. And he thought, okay, can I add glamping to this? And glamping was on trend. It still is. Yeah. You can charge a bit extra for glamping.
Yeah, there's a certain amount of setup cost to get it in place.
Yeah.
So he says yes.
He says yes.
Talk to us about what happened next.
So I used the standard proposal for sort of rent to SA. Look, I'll give you a guaranteed rent on this piece of land. I'll give you £300 a month, guaranteed, and I'm just going to put a glamping site on it and run it. And he was so unconvinced that it would work. He thought that was an unfair deal for me. He was arguing against it, saying, well, what if it doesn't work? And I was like, it'll work. I was so keen to get this deal. I've been working for a year doing nothing. Finally, I've got this opportunity. I'll give you the money. It doesn't matter. I'll find it. And he said, look, it might not work, Phil. So I'll tell you what, just give me £25 for every night that someone stays, and then you keep the rest. Yeah. So it became a bit like a profit share. And it was one of the best deals I've ever done. Incredible.
So £25 a night?
A night.
So you've just got a base cost?
Yeah. That's my base cost, £25 a night.
Okay. And he's trusting you to report that back to him?
Yeah.
He's not going to come check
it? Yeah.
Does he get 25% of the revenue you got?
£25.
£25. It was a fixed amount.
Yeah. Right, okay.
Fixed amount. And initially when I was started, like you do in SA, the prices were a bit low just to sort of test the market, get people in, get good reviews. So I was charging like 60 or 70 quid a night.
Yeah.
So that's a fairly big cut, £25. But it's still good for me. But then as the campsite progressed and my glamping got bigger and bigger and better, I was getting like £140 a night in the summer.
Right.
Right.
My minimum prices were 100 a night.
Right.
So I was making a real good profit on this.
And you've no holding cost?
No holding costs. I didn't have to pay any rent, just £25 a night. So if it was empty, like in the quieter winter months, it cost me less. But that's fine. I was making less. So it was a win-win. If I took them down for the winter, it didn't cost me any money. So sometimes in the winter, I'd just take them down, pack the yurts up, stick them in storage because it was a quiet part of the season. Just bring them out in the summer. And it was fine. Like it really worked very, very well for 2 to 3 years, no problem. And I really grew that business and had it on multiple sites at one point. And the farmer then went and invested in his own glamping units from the back of my success. He bought some glamping pods and he was like, well, you know what you're doing. Will you run these for me? So then I had like a management business on the side.
Right,
I was running his glamping pods and my yurts. And then other people were sort of saying, oh, can you manage this for me and manage that for me? So I had a little bit of a glamping management business alongside my rent-to-rent business. Yeah. And that's what I used to build up all my credibility and build up all my reviews to go on to bigger and better things.
Right. So that was the sort of start of the journey as far as the cash flow. And then what did you progress to after that?
Yeah. So really, like I've said already, during COVID, there was a huge opportunity. In every market, there's an opportunity. And where there's fear, there breeds uncertainty.
Yes.
And if you can push against that, there's a real opportunity there. I think we spoke about this last night, didn't we, Phil, about how people can really lean into uncertainty.
Yeah, it was the Warren Buffett quote that I really love, which is be greedy when others are fearful.
Exactly.
Be fearful when others are greedy.
Yeah, and I think, Phil, because we had a networking event last night and you raised a very good point that we're talking a lot about the renters reform bill.
The renters' rights.
And the challenges of landlords, which means that there's going to be opportunities for property deals because there's going to be a lot of landlords that are going to look to exit the market as a result. So that's that similar sort of theme at the moment.
Yeah, there's a real opportunity now for that. And for me, going back to COVID was a massive opportunity. Briefly touching on the glamping site was closed, cost me no money.
Yeah, because you didn't agree to the £300.
Exactly. So that was
the farmer was kicking himself.
That was an amazing deal for me. The yurts were up. It was the summer. It was sunny. No one was coming. Cost me no money. I was like, this is fine. But what I lent into was property, and actually there was suddenly a lot of holiday homes that were empty. And no one knew when this lockdown was going to end. It's hard to think back to those times now and how much uncertainty there actually was because the whole world was shut down.
It was complete uncertainty.
Oh, and if you were tired doing something before COVID and then your business gets shut down for a period of time, you're coming out of that going, I don't want to do this anymore.
I don't want to do this anymore.
That's the last straw.
And how long is this going to go on for? How long am I going to have a holiday home that's empty that I'm paying mortgages on, gas, electricity? What's going to happen? So suddenly, all those conversations that was happening before my glamping site of knocking on doors, doing rent-to-rents, purchase lease options, people were just shutting the door in my face and go away. But now people are sat there with empty holiday homes, and someone knocks on the door and says, well, I'll give you a guaranteed rent for it. And suddenly, unsurprisingly, I was getting more traction. So I leapt from glamping into my first bricks and mortar rent to SA during COVID, during the lockdown. And I negotiated a 1-year PLO, basically. An existing holiday home already running.
Sorry.
So just for the listeners,
PLO is a purchase lease option.
Yes.
So, and just very to summarize a purchase lease option, that is a contract between you and the owner.
Yes.
Where you were going to lease it, and you have the option to buy.
Option to buy.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly right.
At a certain point in time.
Yeah. For a price that you fix at the moment.
Yeah.
At the time.
Yeah, you fix the price. You can fix the price now.
Fix the price now.
You're going to pay him a lease fee.
Yeah.
And you can buy it in a set time frame.
Right, in a set time.
And if the contract expires, he can take his property back.
Exactly.
So under the right
PRG,
circumstances, it works really well. And I think if the vendor needs monthly cash flow because they have expenses, that's where it can work better than say in an early exchange delay completion or something like that.
Yeah. Well, it worked, and it worked really well for me. It was a very risky deal to do because I was taking on a holiday let during a lockdown, right? Guaranteeing the rent, had to come up with that money from somewhere.
Yeah.
And the purchase was less risky because obviously it's an option, purchase lease option. I didn't have to buy this house at the end of the term.
Yeah, if it doesn't work, you don't buy it.
Exactly. And he really wanted to sell the house. So we only negotiated a 1-year option. Can I buy this in a year? Let me just try this out. Give me a chance to run this house as an Airbnb. Let me see if it works. And then if it works, I'll buy it. And he's like, yeah, that's fine. So I took it. And for 2 months, it was empty. But then in the third month, it was July the 4th. I'll never forget that date. Right. Suddenly the government said, you can go anywhere you like, but it's got to be in the UK.
Yeah,
and all the holiday homes just went through the roof.
Yes.
My glamping site overnight fully booked for the whole summer. That made a huge amount of money that year. And then this holiday home that I'd taken, the only one I had, just fully booked with week-long bookings. And we've not seen bookings like that since, but every single week was booked for 7 days for a British family that were coming to stay in the Peak District.
And we had some stunning weather as well.
And it was good.
Great weather,
It was good. July the 4th was a great day. Yeah, it was a really good day in weather as well. So yeah, and using the revenue I generated from that, you could see that the holiday home was performing really, really well. The guy that owned the house was like, do you want to buy it? And I said, yes, let me just go raise the investment. And then I went and found my first joint venture partner who put £80,000 in to buy this house based on the numbers that it was generating, but also on my experience on the glamping site. Because then I had this credibility of, look at the reviews I've got for this glamping site. She came and looked at it. She loved it. She's like, oh, I love what you're doing here. And I've also got this house. I really love it. I want to buy it, but I just don't have the money. Let's go and do it together. I'll run it like I am. Look at the reviews. They're great. Look at the money it makes. It's great. Let's just buy it together and we'll split it 50-50. And she said, yeah.
So just to summarize there, you had the skills, expertise, and a bit of time because you now got cash flow.
Yeah.
You did not have the funds.
Nope.
So you joined up with someone that had the funds.
And you'd been through the pain points because the whole point of running SA units is painful, right? Because the painful part is getting the people to book in the first place. All the different systems, all the third-party advertising processes, the insurance requirements, the cleaning requirements, the preparation for the next guest, all of that kind of stuff is really requires a system.
It does,
and you'd had that as well. So it's not just about owning a property at that point, is it? So how do I make that make money?
Yeah, you cannot underestimate the value of your experience and skill there to another investor.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And I think other people having conversations, you don't underestimate what your knowledge that you've got and the experience you've got. A lot of people see the money as being more important than the knowledge that other people bring to the table, but it's absolutely not the case. You need that knowledge to make these deals work. So don't forget that when you're negotiating with a JV partner. A lot of them try and beat you down.
Very similar for me in a way, but because I did a lot of developments and project management, I probably years ago underestimated how my skill set could help someone else when I didn't have funds as well.
Yeah.
But then when you realize that, you can complement and bring that skill set.
Yeah, exactly. And it really worked very, very well. It worked very, very well.
Stop the podcast now. This episode is sponsored by Property Filter. Property Filter is the #1 property tool for today's property professional. It brings in all the data points and sources from all the property portals and auction sites into one convenient place. Then you have the option to overlay all the clever strategies found in the Property Filter blueprint to find motivated sellers faster. Now, we use it on a daily basis. It saves us over 80% of our time when looking for properties. And if that sounds like something that you want in your lives, please go to register.property-filter.co.uk/PPB, which is the discount code for this podcast. You will get 2 weeks free and a discount on your first month. That's it from me. Back to the podcast.
Great. So first deal over the line.
Yeah.
You then bought it using somebody else's money.
Yeah.
And you've not looked back.
Not look back.
So you've done it again and again and again and again.
And again and again and again, and bigger.
Bigger.
And bigger and better. That house.
So what's your strategy now then?
My strategy now is still to buy large holiday lets. The first one I bought was 4 beds, and it performed well and did okay.
This is the 80 grand loan.
This is the 80 grand loan one, yeah, in the Peak District where I live. Great house. But then I started looking to buy bigger and bigger ones with more and more investor finance that would perform even better. And there's a sweet spot in the market for luxury large holiday lets in the UK, whereby most people go in at the smaller level.
Yeah.
Even 4 beds is bigger than most people start with. Most people start with a 1 or 2 or 3 bed house.
Yeah.
But because there's so many of them, it's a very competitive market. And the standards for holiday lets and Airbnbs are very, very high now. So if people have been in the market for a long time and built up a huge amount of reviews, you're competing against that with a brand new unit. And the only way you can is to drop the prices. So they don't make a lot of money, basically. But when you go to the higher end, the bigger properties that sleep more people, there's just less of them because less people enter into the market at that stage. And then you can charge more. So you can own a bigger, nicer, better house that makes a lot more money and it's just a better deal all over. And that's what I did. Again, through COVID, I just replicated what I'd learned from the glamping site, from the first property I bought with the JV partnership, and I just did it again and again and again and again with bigger and bigger and better houses. And then I built up a portfolio of, really beautiful grade 2 listed houses throughout the UK, mostly in the Lake District, but also some in the Peak District where I live.
Yeah, and I guess if you're buying a bigger property, all your sunk costs are similar, aren't they? Solicitors costs, all those sort of like front end costs are very, very similar. It's similar to us, really, isn't it? In our HMOs, which is people don't realize when we're doing a HMO that the first 3 to 3.5 rooms pays for the property, and the rest is profit. So if you might get half a room if you're 4 beds, you might get 1.5 rooms of profit if you're 5. Yes, the costs start to increase from that point, but it's not by a full room. It's like half a room again. So it might cost you 4 rooms, but then you get an extra room when you get to 6 and 7. So having a 6 bed is the same as having 2 5-bed properties. I imagine it's quite similar in an SA world because the money you make overnight versus your costs, because your cleaning costs and your person has to get there and spend time there and that kind of stuff are all going to be very similar to a 4-bed property to an 8-bed property in reality. So I imagine that actually having an 8-bed property is probably the same as having, maybe 3 4-bed properties in terms of profitability. Yeah,
and the other big thing is management. Managing a 9-bedroom grade 2 listed house takes exactly the same amount of time as a 1-bed flat.
Yeah, of course it does.
It's exactly the same. It's still one
same
guest
bookings process, same customer services.
And then from a customer perspective as well, if you've got 9 beds, it can become relatively affordable even at a high rate because you can split the costs amongst 9 people.
Exactly.
So if you've got a big family
big family.
That's what we do at Christmas. We book somewhere.
Yeah, all of ours are booked out through Christmas months in advance. I don't think you can book Christmas at any of our big places. Yeah, that's the model. And it does become affordable for more people. So even though the price per night is quite high and the cost for a week seems like an astronomical price, divide it by 15 people, 20 people, it's actually pretty reasonable.
Yeah.
Probably cheaper than your 1-bed flat.
Yeah, well, you get
and
a better...
for much bigger, better facilities in a way, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And like I say, for me, what I realized was managing the ins and outs of one of those bigger luxury places was exactly the same as a 1-bed flat. So why would I go buy 5 or 6 1-bed flats versus 5 or 6 huge houses that transform my life? And it's those bigger deals that really got me the cash flow that I needed. The yurts, yes, they made me good cash flow. The 4-bed holiday home, okay, that made me a little bit of money. But what really changed my life and gave me this freedom was these larger luxury SAs.
Yeah, and I think you gave an example where one of those deals is making you somewhere between £90,000 and £100,000.
That's gross, yes.
Gross.
Yeah, gross. So what we look for when we buy one of these larger houses is kind of £100,000 gross cash flow, generally. Obviously, it depends on what you're paying to get that. So you want to negotiate a good purchase price. But if you can find a decent enough, low enough purchase price in an area where the property prices are that level, you can get £100,000 cash flow for a house that might only cost you £300,000 to £400,000, let's say. And those deals are out there right now.
And what does the net profit break down to? Is like a general example?
Very general, but it's around 40 to 50%.
Right.
And this is where I see if you can get one of these deals and utilize someone else's funds, if you don't have those funds yourself, then you're looking at £30,000 to £40,000 worth of profit, sometimes more, for one deal. For most people's incomes, that is enough to get you out of your job in one go.
Yeah, that's enough.
And if you've left in 25% on a 400k deal as well, so you've left in 100 grand, let's say, and you're making 40 grand net per annum. That's amazing. It's no wonder you can find JV partners.
Exactly.
Because you can. There's headroom. You can afford to split it.
You can afford to split it, and you can afford, even if you can't refinance a lot of money out at the start because the cash flow is so high, you can make sure that they get their return back quickly. So in some cases, and I've done
it's a business at the end of the day, isn't
it?
So refinancing it, you're going to have to prove the business model at some point to a bank, aren't you? And to say, actually, it's been running now for a couple of years.
Yes.
Here's my bucks.
Yes.
Give me my money and I'll pay my JV partner back.
Exactly. That's one way we can do it. So I tend to try and pay people back with cash flow as quick as I can. And in some cases, a lot of these houses, because I've got a fairly large portfolio now, I might make that decision that I'll give them all the cash flow for the first couple of years, just to chip their loan down. And for everyone that invests with me as a JV partner, we always have the same rhetoric with everyone. We want you to become a no money left in investor as quickly as possible.
Yeah, nice.
Because we acknowledge that I've come in and I've not put any of the money in. I've got my expertise, I've got my time, I've got everything else, but you've put the funds in. And let's try and get that onto an even playing field as much as possible, as quickly as we possibly can. So when we do the refurbishments on these houses, we pull money out, we give all that to the investor. And in some cases, it gives them most of the money back, and that's great. But in others, and this is really common in property. I mean, how many times have you gone and been downvalued by £20,000, £30,000 that you didn't expect? And it's hard to overcome that. In cases like that, we'll just give them more cash flow. Just say, look, it's not quite worked, but we'll give you more cash flow. And then as a last ditch resort, which it does help, and it can be a really good tactic, is to do a commercial revaluation. But that'll be 2 or 3 years down the line. The longer you can hold off for a commercial valuation, the better they are. I personally don't like to go above bricks and mortar because I think it leaves you a little bit exposed to risk. And I don't want to take too much risk.
Well, if you're making 40 grand on 100 grand left in, you don't need to, do you?
No,
ultimately.
Exactly.
You can stick to the bricks and mortar.
But it is a way I can do it, and I have done it a couple of times to pay people back. So then it's no money
Then I
left.
suppose if you're going to sell it and you can show a buyer that for 2 or 3 years these are the accounts and this is the money you're making if you buy this property in this business. Theoretically, you should be able to get a higher sale value, couldn't you? If you decided to, compared to the bricks and mortar.
Nice. Well done, mate. Have to say, terrific stuff. So we're going to move on to the strategies because we're over time on that, but I think that was really, really good. I think that's one of the best business models I've seen, to be honest with you. And if anybody's starting out and they live anywhere close to somewhere that people might want to stay, why they wouldn't start with a glamping or camping site? And very low cost base, I imagine. How much are these yurt things?
A yurt costs £6,000 from the British manufacturer I use, so they're pretty cheap to set up. It might cost you 10 grand maximum all in to get a
because you've got some facilities as well, toilets,
services set up and things like that.
Well, not if you use a camping site already.
All right, already.
So if you use my exact strategy, you don't have to put in
just plugging into what the power they've got.
Exactly.
So you need 10 grand and a phone.
And off you go.
God, I'm giving a bank and get 10 grand now.
And you can do it even cheaper.
If you've got a job, you can just ring your bank and say, lend me 10 grand, and they'll lend it you.
My first year was second hand. I got.
We do not recommend.
No, don't.
No, don't do that.
Not financial advice.
You don't even need 10 grand.
Yeah.
You can do it for less. My best friend lent me £3,500 for my first yurt, and it was second hand off eBay. And it arrived. It was fine, and I ran that for a couple of years.
Is this the Mongolian one?
It's the Mongolian one, yeah. It's tiny. Yeah. Mongolian yurts are really low. Mongolia are just smaller people. So it's not quite made for the UK market. And also, Mongolia is a very dry country. It's very cold. It doesn't rain much there. Whereas in the UK, it rains a lot. So they try and make some additions to these yurts from Mongolia that are very, very cheap to make them waterproof, but they're just not.
It's going to leak. If it's not UK based, it's going to leak. Lovely. So we're going to move on to question 4. So what does a typical day look like for you as a now SA entrepreneur?
Great question. I'm trying to actually be a lot more structured in my days. This is one of the mistakes but one of the things that I need to improve on, because I'm naturally a bit less structured, let's say.
What's your wealth dynamic?
I'm a star.
Right, there you go then.
I'm a star, and it's exactly my dynamic. It doesn't meet organisation very well.
So for our listeners, that's good at ideas and
Yeah.
concepts and everything like that. And you like to
Running
go to
before you can
different
walk.
things
Yeah.
Everything that I've done has all been star. It's been creative, fun, great idea. Let's just go for it. But organisation is definitely one of my weaknesses. So I've got a coach that helps me along my way now, which is great. He's really added a lot of support to me, and he says, just create a plan every day for what you're going to do. And that's what I try and stick to. So I drop the kids off at 9. I don't do any work before 9 o'clock. I wake up. One of the best things about being your own boss is I don't have an alarm. I just wake up whenever the kids wake up for school. So it was 8 o'clock this morning. Not a problem. Take the kids to school, and then every hour of the day has got kind of an allocation of, work on this, do that. I tend to, and one of the other mistakes that I think I like to pass on to people is I have set times in the day where I check my emails, and it's so easy to just open a laptop and just run around being busy, doing emails, WhatsApp messages, this and that, but not actually focusing on anything in particular. So I tend to have a 2-hour window in the morning where every day I focus on something different, whether it's working on new deals, whether it's improving the systems on my current deals, working on my finances. And then I have like an hour window every day where I do emails on WhatsApp, and I just focus on it then. And then I go back to it. And every afternoon I put in 2 or 3 hours of free time. So I tend to work till midday, lunchtime. If my wife's around, I'll do something with her. If not, I'll go running, go paragliding, do something that I like to enjoy.
So your really important focus work is sort of your 9 till 12-ish midday, is it?
Yeah, I learned over time that I'm very, very good from 9 till 12. And then after that, I drop off a cliff. My focus just disappears. So I'm like, well, okay, I just won't do anything after that. I'll just do something fun, do something different. And then if I need to, I'll do some work in the evening, but generally not. So I'll try and run my entire business, £4 million portfolio and continuously growing with 2 or 3 hours work a day. And I'm happy with that. I don't want to be retired. I'd get bored. I get twitchy fingers. I need to try and do something to keep me going. And neither do I want to be busy and stressed and working 12 hours a day. I could be. I could grow this portfolio again and again and again and again. But I just don't want to go through that phase of work and stress and heartache again. I'm happy just chipping away, growing in my own way, 2 or 3 hours a day. Great, done. I'm happy with that.
Super.
Excellent.
That is excellent, I have to say. So, question 5. Success and failure. Okay, so property and financial freedom goals and all that kind of stuff, not always a straight line.
No.
So
I would say probably never.
True.
Never. All right, never a straight line. But so the question is, what are you most proud of in your journey so far, and what has been your biggest setback or challenge?
Okay, I'll start off with what I've been most proud of. Most proud of are just a couple of these beautiful houses that I own. Really, for me, property.
Give us a picture.
I'll give you a picture. Okay, I'll give you a picture. But for me, I've got to be passionate about the deals that I do. One of the mistakes that I've done is I've done a couple of deals, more sort of contractor-based accommodation, where I just don't love the building, but the numbers work. And I'm not a numbers person. I'm a passionate ideas person. So my favorite, best deals are the grade 2 luxury houses that are just stunning buildings to own, that are brought back to life with a thorough refurbishment. And then when I go and spend time in them with my family and my friends, it's just a fantastic, wonderful
really
feeling.
Enjoy it. Yeah.
And I own these houses that I would never have been able to own if they weren't a business. I wouldn't have been able to afford the deposit on these places, but because they're a business and the numbers work and I've been able to get that investment, I now own this building. It's incredible. So one of the best ones is in the Peak District. I'm going there tonight for one of my own events. And it's a 6-bedroom ex-pub, grade 2 listed, dates back to the 1700s.
All right, nice.
Beautiful oak beam.
Re-insulated then?
Yeah. We've done a lot of work on the insulation to get the UPC up. Beautiful oak beams exposed, lovely brand new kitchen, hot tub outside, garden. Parking's really big one. It's got lovely parking. I love it. It's one of my best ones. And then another one I bought.
Where's that?
That's in Chapel on the Frith, which is in the Peak District. Really central to the Peak District. That's the first large holiday let in that location. Before we bought it, there were just a couple of 1-bed apartments. No one was looking at it. We landed that place, and now suddenly it's growing as a tourist destination. We're bringing a lot of revenue into that town. And as we were doing the conversion, this is another reason I like this building so much. It was a buy-to-let. It was an old pub, Then the landlord bought it and turned it into a buy-to-let, but it was a really tired buy-to-let. And all the local people remembered the pub. They remembered going in there. They remembered their grandmas and their mum and dads drinking there, and when they were little girls and boys running around their feet. And they could tell you all about this pub. But when it became a buy-to-let, they lost access to that as a community. They never got to see it again. And it just got worse and worse and worse and more tired. And when we brought it up, we bought it and we did it up. People were coming in, locals would be like sticking their head in the door. It's like, come on in, come and see what we're up to. And they were so pleased that we transformed it back to a useful building. You could see that we were repainting the outside and redoing the windows, and this whole building had a new lease of life to it. And the whole community has been really supportive about it. They love it. And we support local businesses. We go to local restaurants. We tell our guests to go here, drink there, eat there. And it's been a real success story in that whole area.
I do agree with you. It really is great to bring an old, dilapidated, empty building or like a poor quality back to a high quality place for people to stay and live.
Very rewarding. Like that's one of the best parts of it for me. And I'm really passionate about the buildings I buy. Like I say, I think that's really important. And that's one of the things. I would never continue to buy a house that I didn't really love and want to hold it in my portfolio.
Sounds lovely. I have to say, it sounds lovely. And then challenges.
Challenges, yeah. So one of the challenges with the way that I've been raising finance is going to long-term relationships with people. And I've been very lucky in that I've got many JV partners that we now own properties together with. And it's like a marriage, like you're in this relationship for a long time with these people. But the challenge of that is if it goes wrong. And I did have it go wrong only once with one investor that bought 2 houses with us, and the relationship just fell apart. There was a lot of distrust. I think this person might have had some issues outside of the business that were having an effect. And it was a very, very difficult time because the only way that we could take her out of the JV agreement was to buy her off, this person, and raise extra money elsewhere to give her not only the money that this person put in, but also extra money. So they walked away from the deal in a far better place than they came in. But we had to go and raise that money and raise those finances. And it was really difficult, a very, very stressful time to have to overcome. And so one of the lessons really for people is if you are going to raise finance in that way, is to really take the time and care to get to know your JV partners as well as you can. And that's one of the reasons why I kind of teach people to go and build relationships with people that might be JV partners before you have a deal. Whereas what we were doing during this rapid growth phase was just finding a deal and then desperately finding someone to come and buy it with us and just repeating that process. And we didn't have the time to go through that proper due diligence with every single investor. And I've been so lucky with the people that are still with us and only went wrong once, and it's one occasion. But it's so painful if you don't do that. So painful.
I completely agree. Your point about your sort of relationship before 100% makes a huge difference. And the other thing that I've looked at, that I've learned, is the type of differing but complementing skill set. So sometimes your vision, your goals very similar, but you are different and you can help each other. That works as well. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. We were talking before the recording started that one of my biggest weaknesses being a star is numbers, spreadsheets, data, organization. So my best joint venture partners are people like accountants. When someone says they're an accountant, they want to work with me, I'm like, great, because they can really tackle that huge part of the business that I'm weakest at, and I can focus on my strengths, which is finding these great deals, having the vision to pull it off, and really bringing everything together.
Maybe a good learning for our listeners is like, you're a star, you needed funds. If you teamed up with someone that was a star that had funds, that's not necessarily as good as another skill set that had funds for a long-term relationship. Anyway, so don't just
when we say star, we're talking about the GeniusU wealth dynamics.
It's the profile
paid for profile assessment, and we use it all the time. We hire with it. We rely on it so heavily.
It's very good.
It's the one that works.
It's excellent.
It's really good.
It seems very accurate for the sectors we work in.
But if you don't know about GeniusU, because some of the people listening to it might not have an awareness of it, I mean, you can Google it and look into it,
or listen to the upcoming podcast.
Oh, right, okay,
GeniusU wealth dynamics.
Oh, I didn't know about that one. Okay, well, listen to that. That will really help them. But effectively, what we're saying is people have different personalities, don't they? People have different strengths and weaknesses, and just to acknowledge what yours are, and when you're looking at JV partners, try and assess what they are. GeniusU is a great way of doing that.
You've also got to set the boundaries as well, which is there is risk here.
Yes.
It can go wrong, and if it goes wrong, you have to accept the risk yourself. Because that's the most important part, isn't it? Really, like if somebody's putting money into a project and they're taking a part of that project, and you're not backing that loan, they're just putting the money in to get a return and own an asset.
Yeah.
They are taking that risk, you know. And one of the common things I see is, you know, people who badmouth other people on these social medias is, I didn't know about this risk. And it's like, well, you've put money in, you are owning a part of that. So if you're looking to raise finance, you need to make sure that those people are aware that they're owning and an equal share in that risk is theirs. It's not just yours.
Yeah.
You know?
So there's two things here that you can look at. It's almost talking about the worst case scenarios or the divorce well before it happens or ever happens. So
exit.
So the exit plan with these partners, isn't it? And obviously you can get things like shareholder agreements in place that, you know, clearly defines, you know,
there's a difference between raising for a joint venture and raising for something that you're going to just give a guarantee and loan money on, and then you're just going to put your own assets against that guarantee or whatever.
Yes, it's true. No, it's true. You're right. Talking about the loan agreements, you've always got to discuss what would happen if you get divorced. You know, that's what it's like a marriage. So I keep speaking in that analogy. If you get divorced, who's going to take the house? How are you going to split the assets up? So that's all in a joint venture contract. You hope it doesn't come to that, but people's circumstances change. It's not happened to me yet, but any of our JV partners at some point could say, I need my money back for this or that. And that's, again, partly why I try and refund them as much as I can, as quick as I can, to protect myself against that. And ultimately, if we've repaid them all and they say, look, we need to split up and go different ways, you can just sell the house. And that kind of level of protection is really good for JV partners. And this is one of the reasons why we could raise six-figure sums for these big luxury houses. It's because as a JV partner, they own the house with you. So it gives them a lot of protection and security.
Shared risk,
versus something like a development or new build that can get halfway out of the ground and then it falls apart. How do they get the money back? It's virtually impossible in that situation. But with a house that you're already buying that exists, bricks and mortar, you know what the sort of refurb budget's going to be, but you could always sell it. Obviously, as an investor, you don't want to ever sell any of your properties. You want to keep it for the long term. But that is an option for our partners. That is an option.
So very good learning there is that you've raised a lot of investor finance without your own funds. So there's some partnerships there, but there's always some key things you have to do to agree up front.
And when it goes wrong, stressful.
Really stressful.
Yeah, you're talking sleepless nights, you know.
Terrible. It's terrible. It's awful. It was an awful time. And everyone involved in those deals was stressed. You know, the person that wanted to get out was stressed and angry. We were stressed and angry. We were trying, at one point we were talking legals, going to court about this, horrible. And something I don't want to ever go through again. But you know what? I learned a lot from it, At
the same time, saying not going through it again, you are the kind of person that's willing to take measured risks.
Oh, yes.
To move forward, and hopefully the people want to do the same thing.
And
it's only
use the learnings you've had from that circumstance.
We now take way more time and care and attention in the JV partners that we work with. And this is what I was saying at the start. I went through that partly because I went through such a massive expansion through COVID, 16 houses in a year with all these different JV partners. And I'm very lucky that I didn't get this more than once.
1 in 16.
Because it could have happened a lot more.
Not a bad ratio, is it?
Exactly. And I went through the same process for every single purchase of, rapidly finding someone to fill in this gap to provide the funding.
People get really excited about finding private finance.
Yes. Yeah. And it's good. I'm quite good at raising this finance. I can put money into all sorts of different things. But now I'm just so careful about who I work with, and people have to know me for a while, and I have to know them in order to prevent this happening again.
Lovely, great example. So brings us to our last question for you, if that's all right.
Yeah.
What's the best piece of advice that you've been given?
Great question. There's a couple of I'd want to give, but I'll just probably stick with one due to time. Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yeah.
What was the name of the author?
Robert Kiyosaki.
Brilliant guy.
Oh, yeah.
Brilliant guy.
Read or audiobook? Did you read it?
I've read it, actually.
Right,
yeah, I read it. Going back a few years.
He authors it on the audio.
Oh, that'd be good.
Yeah.
But he had a quote. I'm not sure if it's in his book, but a question opens the mind and a statement closes it. So, going back to the 100-mile race, when that guy overtook me and I was 30 miles in, he'd done 80 through the night. I didn't say, I can't run 100 miles. It was, how can I run 100 miles? And that question really changes the thought direction. And if you just have a statement of, I can't do this, then you won't. Very similar to Henry Ford's quote of, whether you believe you're right or wrong, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And so if you don't believe you can do it, you never will. So just ask yourself a question, how can I, every time? So how can I get a £4 million portfolio in 2 years?
Yeah.
How can I raise private finance to buy this next house? And every single challenge I've had throughout the entire process, I've never said I can't. It's how can I? And that's really led my thinking and allowed me to open up to other possibilities.
And then you weigh out how can I and the process involved, and then you weigh up will you do it or not do it. Basically, basically I think what you're getting at is anyone can do anything if you've got the right mindset, but if you work out the steps in between, that will get you there.
Exactly. Yeah. But it all starts with, for me, how can I get there?
Yeah.
You know? And then a plan arrives, and then a course of action comes, and then you get there and you follow the steps.
Lovely.
That's great.
Really great, Phil. Thank you very much for spending some time with us. Before you go, we will ask you to write a guest question before you go.
We've got the guest question.
We've got your guest question that somebody else has written for you. Which you've already touched on, to be fair, so it might be a little bit of repeat here.
Yeah.
But the previous guest has asked, what does financial freedom to you beyond monetary wealth?
Yeah, like you say, I've already touched on this. It's time for me. That's what I really did all of this for. I've never had a high, lofty goal of being a multimillionaire, having a massive house with a swimming pool, a Ferrari's never interested me. Never interested me. That's not why I'm here. I'm here to create time freedom. So that's what it's all been about for me, just to have a nice lifestyle and spend time with my family and being able to do what I want when I want, effectively.
Lovely. Very, very good.
And we did ask you to prepare a question.
Yeah, you get to ask us a question now. It's not just all about you. So you get to ask us a question. So what would you like to ask us?
I don't know which one to start with, but one of my questions was, what do you think the biggest strategy in 2025 will be? You know, what opportunities do you see in this current market coming?
Property strategy.
Yeah,
it's a good question, isn't it? For coming in for 2025. So for anybody who's listening, we're in 2024, end of summer, 2024. So what is the biggest strategy for 2025? So I think what's going to happen is you're going to see more and more people looking for guaranteed rents. I think you're going to see more and more people looking for social leases. So if you can do either of those two things, I think you're in a good space. So if you are looking to start out and you can do like a rent-to-rent type thing, if you think about where we are, the biggest changes in the market, we have some regulation coming in for serviced accommodation, as you well know. We won't talk about that because it's boring. And we have the renters reform on the renters' rights bill that's coming in 2025. There's going to be a lot of landlords looking to exit, which means that there's going to be lots of property deals that could be acquired, and then it'll settle down again. It always does when these things happen. So, but not everything will work to the level at what somebody wants. So you're probably going to find a lot of people who want to keep the property but just don't want to have to deal with the renters' rights issues. So if you can systemize something like you have, I think that's a really good strategy. And then acquisition. I just think there's going to be lots of vacant acquisition property that I think is going to offer a really good opportunity for people in this next 12 months, just because I think it's going to, especially if the capital gains tax is coming in, we're a month before the announcements from the new government about what might happen to capital gains. So if you've got people who don't want the new renters' rights, you've got capital gains changes, and you've got new regulation coming into service accommodation. There's going to be lots of tired people that just don't want to carry on. It's a bit similar to the end of that COVID feeling, like that. I just don't want to do this anymore. If we're 5 years beyond that now, in 2025. So it's like, well, actually, there's going to be those people who've been through that and are now getting this, and they're going to be like, do you know what, I just want to exit. So it's finding those people really looking to exit and either acquiring property or giving them something to guarantee.
So I think if I look at two key things for me, if we looked at the Labour Party now in power, so I'm trying to be hopeful and positive with this response. So planning reform. So there is an opportunity that could be some good planning reform that will help developers. So if I look at it and think, big or commercial property that may suit, a conversion or an upgrade or something like that, there might be some good planning reforms that help, get that through an efficient process for development. And number two, you touched on it before, but the renters' rights bill, if it is anything like what it is drafted at, is going to cause a lot of landlords to want to leave the market, which means on the flip side, there's good opportunities for other landlords to purchase those property from real tired landlords that have had enough, and this is the final straw type thing. And again, I think as a result, it will push up rents and the cost of living even higher, because it's not going to bring rents down. It's going to reduce the supply. So I don't think it's going to be ultimately good for tenants either.
Good time to set up a really highly performing lettings business as well.
Yes, yeah.
For people to actually say, I do really high, checks on tenants and that kind of thing, because that's going to be really, really important. And getting good deals in place with insurance providers to back your business, to offer rent guarantees and things like that, is going to be really important.
Yeah,
I think that's a good opportunities at the moment because of those changes. Like with everything, if people are fearful, let's be greedy. So there are plenty of opportunities there. It's a great question.
Really good question.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
Anything else?
Was there a second question?
You get two questions.
I was going to ask a second one. My second one was going to be, I think this is a good topic to ask any investor. What's the best deal you didn't end up doing?
Right, I've got a really fresh one actually.
There's a few, isn't there?
Yeah.
I'll go with the fresh one because it's happened this week actually. But there is a deal that we are doing the project management, full build management, and hopefully the lettings management for a client of ours. But we didn't source the deal, and it is a really good deal. It's sort of on the border of Stockport and Manchester Council, and it's going to be a really high-end, nice HMO.
Yeah.
We searched in that area and we didn't find the deal, and we're trying to work out why we didn't. It's an absolute, it's a really good deal.
Someone else's deal.
Yeah, they found it themselves.
Oh, right.
So they are a client of ours that we are sourcing another deal and doing a full development for, but this one they sourced themselves. And we didn't
even see it.
We reviewed it, and basically it was listed completely wrong, wasn't it? So we look at...
Well, actually, it wasn't listed wrong necessarily. But our systemization of how we identify our property, it didn't fall into that system, if you like. So, for example, we've got either properties over a certain size or 3 beds and above. Yeah. Right. But this property didn't have a size listed, and it was 2 beds.
Didn't it say 13 square meters and some?
Yeah, I think that was.
I think it said 2 beds, even though it's a 4 bed. So.
Yeah, no, it was a 2 bed. It is 2 double rooms.
Right.
Yeah, so it's only because it's got two receptions on the ground floor. So yeah, so it didn't fall into that. So we've now gone back and just tweaked our systemization and strategy. So the next time that type of property comes
and then we rechecked it and it came up, didn't it? So we know that we would
our systems coordinator and our property acquisition team have got to work a little bit harder to go through more property. Yeah. But it means that we won't miss out on that again. But yeah, that was we're still making.
So sometimes the biggest
still doing the project management and we're still getting the lettings.
But you didn't find it.
But we didn't find it. It was so annoying.
We literally looked at it like, hang on, why?
We would have bought that all day long as well. But it wasn't just us, because when they said to us, he said we were the only one at auction. And when we auction for property, there's always competition. Yeah. So it just goes to show, if you find something that sits outside the norm, there's always a good deal to do. If something looks wrong, But
listed wrong is a key one. I know it was debatable where it's advertised. Yeah, advertised wrong is probably key.
Well, our first deal was
because we did a big development that was it was advertised like a commercial type property, wasn't it? But really residential. So it didn't get any of the residential market at all looking for it.
We went for this auction and it was like industrial unit, 3 flats. Industrial unit. And I was just
it had a part commercial,
because like a little warehouse to go.
Warehouse and a basement.
And a basement, yeah.
But the rest of it was resi. But
mostly resi, just a tiny bit of commercial.
But no one saw it at all.
No one bid on it. No bids, that kind of thing. It'd been through 2 auction cycles. And I was just like, I'll just buy that. That's 100%. Yeah, 100% what we want to do. Yeah. So that's a good tip though. At the same time, if you find, because if you're competing with us, we've got teams that just look for property. All the time. So if you compete with us, sometimes you've got to find that outside of the box thing, and that's what they've done. So fair play, But nice we got something out of it. But we missed the deal.
You still benefited from it, but I could see it grates on you.
It does grate,
but also the other key is the learning from it, isn't it? Because I identified that. Oh, hang on, why have we not done that in our business? And that's the learning from.
That's us telling them they're not going to get it twice. That's it. Lovely, right? So thank you very much, Phil. I think that was a great episode. Thank you very much for sharing your learnings with us, and certainly. What a 4 to 5 year journey you've been on.
Yeah, congratulations to you on everything.
Yeah, congratulations.
Property and with your outdoor.
Yeah, I think you've got some really good times ahead. I really do. I think you've smashed it so far, and keep doing what you're doing, and we'll see you in another 4 years.
Yeah, I'll come back.
Yeah. We'll have the next podcast in one of your grade 2 listed
you're welcome to. That'll be a good idea.
Yeah, lovely. All right, so thank you very much, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you once again for joining us on the Financial Freedom Podcast, sponsored by us at Property Portfolio Building. If you want to get in touch with us about today's podcast or any of the topics, learning topics that we've gone through today, you can email us at podcast@invest-prop.co.uk or get in touch with us with whichever your social media platform of choice is. If you think you would add value to us as a guest on this podcast, you can please get in touch and let us know what you would be able to talk to us about. Other than that, we wish you well on your financial freedom journeys. And once again, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you on the next one.